Very good afternoon, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the public lecture by His Excellency Rala Xanana Gusmão, Prime Minister of the Democratic Republic of Timor-Leste. In addition to the guests present here in the auditorium, our Malaysian missions across the globe are also present through the online platform. So we welcome everyone. As we're about to begin the program shortly, I would like to inform you some housekeeping announcements. For those of you who are seated, closer to the edge, maybe you want to, come closer to the center so you can invite our guests to come fill in the side seats. If you're aware, the restrooms are located on the ground floor and on the first floor. There are several exits located at the back and front of this auditorium. And in case of any unlikely emergency, please make your way to the main globe at the open area at the entrance of this institute. Please be reminded that we have a Q&A session after the lecture has been delivered. To our guests in the auditorium, if you have any questions, kindly raise your hands and we will get someone to send the microphone over to you. To our guests joining online, you can post your questions in the chat box. And to our guests in the viewing room located next door, if you have any questions, kindly find our usherates and they will guide you on how to pose your questions. Just a kind reminder, please state your name and affiliation when posting your questions. And also, we would like to ask you to kindly rise upon the arrival of our distinguished guest. Your cooperation is much appreciated, and I'll see you shortly. Thank you. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, announcing the arrival of His Excellency Rala Xanana Gusmão, Prime Minister of the Democratic Republic of Timor-Leste, accompanied by distinguished guests into the hall. everyone to kindly be seated. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh. A very good afternoon to everyone. Salam Malaysia Madani, selamat sore, hola and benvindo. It is my honor to welcome you to the historic public lecture by His Excellency Rala Xanana Gusmão, Prime Minister of the Democratic Republic of Timor-Leste, right here at the Institute of Diplomacy and Foreign Relations, Malaysia. Boa tarde. Bem-vindo, my IDFR. Obrigado, hakarak, my visita a minha fatin. Ami contenti no soloksimo Excellencia Senior Primeiro Ministro e hafatin ne IDFR. Obrigada, Wayne. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, before we proceed with the main event, it gives me great honor to invite Dato' Said Bakri Said Abdul Rahman, the Director General of the Institute of Diplomacy and Foreign Relations, to deliver his welcoming remarks.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. His Excellency Rala Xanana Gusmão, Prime Minister of the Democratic Republic of Timor-Leste, His Excellency Datuk Seri Francisco Calboade Le, Vice Prime Minister and Coordinating Minister for Economic Affairs and Minister of Tourism and Environment of Timor-Leste, Excellency Bendito dos Santos Freitas, Minister of Foreign Affairs and Cooperation of Timor-Leste, ministers and other senior officials of the government of Timor-Leste, Yang Berhormat Tuan Adam Adli bin Abdul Halim, Deputy Minister of Youth and Sports of Malaysia, Yang Berbahagia Datuk Ahmad Rozian Abdul Ghani, Deputy Secretary General of Bilateral Affairs, Wisma Putra, Yang Berbahagia Datuk Amarjit Singh, Ambassador of Malaysia to East Timor, Timor-Leste, His Excellency Ambassador Disualdo Gaspar. Okay, blocked by him. Ambassador of Timor-Leste to Malaysia, Tan Sri Muhammad Sharul Ikram Yaakob, former Secretary General of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Malaysia, Excellency Ambassadors and members of the Diplomatic Corps, and I would also like to acknowledge the presence of Yang Berbahagia Tan Sri Syed Hamid Alba, former Minister of Foreign Affairs of Malaysia, Tan Sri Datuk Sri, Datuk Datin, distinguished guests, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Boa tarde, good afternoon, and salam sejahtera. It is indeed a great honor for me to extend a warm welcome. Selamat datang to His Excellency Xanana Gusmão, Prime Minister of Timor-Leste, on your first visit to the Institute of Diplomacy and Foreign Relations of Malaysia today, IDFR. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, Malaysia and Timor-Leste have maintained a strong and amicable relationship even prior to Timor-Leste's independence. Malaysia was the first to establish a liaison office in Dili in April 2001, which was subsequently elevated to an embassy in May 2002, making Malaysia the first ASEAN country to have established an embassy in the country. Since then, Malaysia has actively collaborated with Timor-Leste in areas of security, human resource development, and institutional capacity building, among others. It is our sincere hope that the enduring and strong bilateral relations between Malaysia and Timor-Leste will continue to flourish in the years to come. As a diplomatic training arm for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Malaysia, IDFR has had the privilege of hosting and training quite a number of Timor-Leste officials through our flagship program, the Malaysian Technical Cooperation Program, MTCP, equipping them with the comprehensive knowledge and relevant skills needed to navigate the dynamic and challenging realm of diplomacy and foreign affairs. I'm proud to share that since the year 2000, MTCP has trained 955 officials from Timor-Leste. This year alone, 5 programs were specifically crafted for Timor-Leste officials with modules ranging from diplomatic training, language and communication, protocol and etiquette, as well as diplomatic mediation. I also had the privilege of leading the IDFR delegation to Dili in October of this year for the English Language and Diplomacy course, an initiative that brought together 50 Timor-Leste officials from various ministries, fostering cross-cultural collaboration and enhancing diplomatic communication skills. This was the time I had the pleasure of a brief meeting with Your Excellency at the VIP room in the Dili airport. Next year, Malaysia will assume the mantle of ASEAN leadership, focusing on 2 core themes, inclusivity and sustainability. In the spirit of the former and as one of the Timor-Leste's strongest collaborators in nation-building efforts, we look forward to Timor-Leste's eventual inclusion as a full-fledged member of ASEAN. Today's lecture, entitled International Diplomacy in an Increasingly Fragmented and Fragile World, is indeed timely as the world today is fragmented and ever polarized, plagued by a multitude of conflicts and deepening insecurities. It is in these pressing times that we must return to the playbook of international diplomacy, not as a generic formality, but as a vital tool to navigate the chaos, a means to bridge divides and restore faith and trust between nations. I speak for all of us when I say that I look forward to hearing invaluable insights around the topic that His Excellency Prime Minister Gusmão will be delivering. Therefore, I encourage everyone here to engage by asking questions and sharing your insights on this pertinent topic later during the Q&A session. With that, I would like to once again express our deepest gratitude to His Excellency Prime Minister for agreeing to come to IDFR to share his knowledge and wisdom with us today. I would also like to thank Tan Sri Shahrul Ikram for his willingness to moderate today's discussion. I take this opportunity to also express my sincere gratitude to the Secretariat, comprising officials and staff of IDFR, Wisma Putra, and Ceremonial Division of the Prime Minister's Department for their hard work in organizing this event. Finally, I look forward to the lecture, which I'm sure will be thought-provoking and spark valuable discussions as well as knowledge sharing among us all. Terima kasih, obrigado, thank you.
Thank you, Yang Berbahagia Dato'. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, next is our main event. Let's now listen to the lecture entitled International Diplomacy in an Increasingly Fragmented and Fragile World, delivered by His Excellency Rala Xanana Gusmão, Prime Minister of the Democratic Republic of Timor-Leste. This session will be moderated by Tan Sri Muhammad Shahrul Ikram Yaakob, former Secretary General, Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Please allow me to introduce our moderator. Tan Sri Shahrul Ikram Yaakob was the former Secretary General of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Malaysia. He has served in several ambassadorial postings, including as the Ambassador of Malaysia to the State of Qatar and the Ambassador of Malaysia to the Republic of Austria. He had also led the ASEAN-Malaysia National Secretariat as Director General before assuming position as the Deputy Secretary General of Bilateral Affairs. From February 2017 to December 2018, Tan Sri served as the permanent representative of Malaysia to the United Nations in New York. He was appointed as Secretary General of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs Malaysia in January 2019, a position he held until his retirement in May 2022. And now, without further delay, I will hand the session over to Tan Sri Muhammad Sharul Ikram Yaakob. Tan Sri, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Master of Ceremony. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon and salam sejahtera. His Excellency Xanana Gusmão, Prime Minister of the Democratic Republic of Timor-Leste, His Excellency Datuk Sri Francisco Kalbuadilai, Vice Prime Minister and Coordinating Minister for Economic Affairs and Minister of Tourism and Environment of Timor-Leste, His Excellency Bendito dos Santos Freitas, Minister of Foreign Affairs and Cooperation of Timor-Leste, Ministers and other senior officials of the government of Timor-Leste, Yang Berhormat Tuan Adam Adli bin Abdul Halim, Deputy Minister of Youth and Sports Malaysia, Yang berbahagia Datuk Ahmad Rozian Ghani, Deputy Secretary General Bilateral Affairs, Minister of Foreign Affairs Malaysia, Yang bahagia Datuk Syed Bakri Syed Abdul Rahman, Director General IDFR, Yang berbahagia Datuk Amarjit Singh, it's a long list, Excellency. Ambassador of Malaysia to Timor-Leste, His Excellency Ambassador Liswaldo Gaspar, Ambassador of Timor-Leste to Malaysia, Excellency Ambassadors and members of the Diplomatic Corps, Tan Sri, Datuk Sri, Datuk, Datin, distinguished guests, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen. I would also like to take this opportunity to acknowledge the presence of Tan Sri, Dr. Syed Hamid Albar, former Minister of Foreign Affairs, Malaysia. Welcome, Tan Sri. I'm honored to be here today, Excellency, in your presence, among many esteemed guests, to moderate an important session entitled International Diplomacy in an Increasingly Fragmented and Fragile World. Before we begin our session, although I know that Your Excellency requires no introduction, but I would still briefly introduce Excellency to our audience today. As we all know, His Excellency Xanana Gusmão is a key figure in the independence movement of Timor-Leste, born in 1946, and he led the resistance, Timorese resistance, which achieved independence later on for the people of Timor-Leste, and later became the first elected president and prime minister of Timor-Leste. Excellency Gusmão joined the public administration in 1966 and was involved with the Revolutionary Front for an Independent Timor-Leste, Pretilin, the political party that became the central force in Timor-Leste's fight for independence. After Timor-Leste gained independence in 2002, Excellency Gusmão was elected President of the Democratic Republic of Timor-Leste until 2007, and then he became Prime Minister, and as Prime Minister he focused on national unity, economic growth, and the country's development plan. He stepped down in 2014, but continued to serve in various roles, including as Minister for Planning and Strategic Investment, and later as Special Representative for Maritime and Land Border Negotiation with Indonesia and Australia. His Excellency Gusmão also played a major role in the creation of Timor-Leste's blue economy and continued negotiations on maritime boundaries as Prime Minister again in 2023. Throughout his career, he received numerous international awards and honorary doctorates, such as the Distinguished Sakharov Prize by the European Parliament in 1999, and also the Sydney Peace Prize in the year 2000, reflecting his contribution to peace, governance, and international relations. Without further ado, I would like to respectfully invite His Excellency Xanana Gusmão, Prime Minister of the Democratic Republic of Timor-Leste, to the rostrum to deliver his public lecture. You have the rostrum, sir.
Thank you for your help. Good afternoon and salam sejahtera. Yang berhormat Tuan Adang Adli bin Ad Abde Halim. You. Okay. Yang berbahagia Dato' Ahmad Ruziana Abdul Ghani. How are you? Yang berbahagia Dato' Syed Bakri Syed Abdul Rahman. Oh, you. Okay. Yang berbahagia Dato' Amarjit Singh Sarjit Singh. Oh, you sing every day. Excellencies, ambassadors and members of the diplomatic corps, Tan Sri, Dato Sri, Dato, Datin. You understand this? Distinguished guests, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, it is yours. Well, good afternoon to everybody. I hope you have enough patience to listen to me. Because that gentleman to teach something to us because he was foreign minister. With your experience, we could learn things better than what I will say to you. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it is a profound honor to stand here today at the esteemed Institute of Diplomacy and Foreign Relations. You know, it doesn't know. A center of excellence in diplomatic training and institutions. Your dedication to fostering your dedication to fostering understanding and preparing leaders for the complexities of international relations has made IDFR a vital institution not only for Malaysia, but for our entire region. Timor-Leste greatly values our collaboration with ASEAN and the opportunities afforded to our diplomats and officials trained here, equipping them with the skills to navigate an increasingly complex and fragile global environment. Challenges of diplomacy today are as daunting as they are necessary for us to face. History teaches us that every age brings its share of uncertainties, conflicts, crises. Just as with Malaysians, the turns of history have had a dramatic impact on the lives of the Timorese people. These turns have included colonization, occupation, the Cold War, and its chaotic end. The Asian financial crisis and the fall of the Indonesian regime, the restoration of independence, and the challenges of peace building and state building. I see many young people in the audience today, and we can all imagine the dramatic turns in history you will experience in your life. The IDFR provides us a vital service, not only by fostering discussions about the international challenges we face, but also emphasizing the importance of preparation and strategic insight. It reminds us that the future belongs to those who dare be ready for it. Today, I want to begin by recalling an event that many considered probably the birth of a free Timor-Leste. Our history is a testament to resilience, determination, and the power of diplomacy. Like most Southeast Asian nations, our past was marked by centuries of European colonialism, followed by a difficult transition to independence. During the centuries of Portuguese rule, our people struggled against colonial overreach, including during periods of revolt and resistance. Then, in 1974, after the Carnation Revolution, this year, 50 years, Portugal began granting self-determination to its colonies. This opened the possibilities for our future. However, this was at a time of high international political tension in Southeast Asia. The war in Vietnam was raising Western fears of the spread of communism, and a year later, in April 1975, Saigon fell and communist governments came to power in Vietnam, Cambodia, and Laos. It was against the political backdrop that we decided to take control of our destiny, and on 28th of November 75, we made an unilateral declaration of independence. 9 days later, Indonesia invaded our country after being given the green light by the United States and Australia. Our people were forsaken by the major Western powers that remained silent or supported our annexation. For 24 years, long years, we waged a seemingly impossible fight, ill-equipped and outnumbered, against a giant that was supplied with arms by its Western allies. Yet, we had something greater than weaponry. We had a dream that had been carried in the hearts of our ancestors and passed down through generations. A dream that inspired us to continue the guerrilla campaign through the mountains and valleys of Timor. While our people stood firm and our guerrilla fighters endured hardships on the battlefield, others took up a different fight. On the diplomatic front, it was their duty They carried our cause to the United Nations, to the capitals of the world, and to the ears of those with the courage to listen. We defied the odds, challenged the path history seemed to dictate, and relied on the bravery of individuals and nations who stood with us. These allies risked their own standing to support our people, even when it meant opposing the policies of their own governments. It was through leading with diplomacy that we were able to secure an independence referendum for our country, in which our people bravely exercised their right to self-determination. While many individuals contributed to the achievement of Timorese freedom, we must give particular credit to Kofi Annan, who was a giant of diplomacy. Kofi Annan was a man of great humanity who guided the United Nations with a sense of purpose, and who was determined to ensure that the Timorese people were given control over their own destiny. After we voted for independence, we faced the task of rebuilding a traumatized and impoverished society destroyed by years of war. And yet, we understood that the only way forward was with peace and reconciliation. Tolerance overcame vengeance. Forgiveness overcame hatred. We knew that independence and the sacrifices of our people would have no value, and that we could not achieve social harmony if the hearts of the Timorese were filled with hatred and the desire for revenge. Through our experience, we understood that we would be unable to build our nation if the seeds of hatred and mistrust were planted in our society. Reconciliation was our prerequisite for national stability, which was, in turn, a requirement for development. Yet, we know that each nation has its own context, its own history, its own culture. However, I believe that all people yearn for the same thing, to live in peace and harmony. This is why I believe that dialogue is so important. Dialogue within every nation, an international dialogue respecting the sovereignty of each country, where the powerful do not seek to impose their interest on the weak, vulnerable. What sets us apart as human beings is our deep ability to care, to show compassion, and to find strength in diversity. These qualities are the foundation of peace, progress, and justice. So, our story is one of hope, resilience, and the unshakable belief that justice can prevail, no matter how overwhelming the odds may seem. Please remember that even in the darkest of times, dreams can light the way to freedom. As we have seen in each era, diplomacy emerged as the most effective alternative to war and discord, a mechanism to build bridges and create pathways to peace. Today, diplomacy is needed more than ever. We face crises across the globe, exposing the fragility of our rules-based international order. One of the starkest examples of the ongoing tragedy in Gaza, a reminder of what happens when diplomacy fails. The situation in Gaza underscores the dire consequences of neglecting long-standing conflict. The failure to resolve the Israel-Palestinian issue has created a cycle of despair, violence, devastating civilian lives, and eroding international norms. The situation in Gaza not only illustrates the collapse of international law, but also exposes the hypocrisy. We were recently encouraged by the announcement of a couple of days ago of a ceasefire between Hezbollah and Israel. As we know from the history of this particular conflict, ceasefires are fragile, and there are already reports of each side accusing the other of violating the terms of the agreement. The worst thing was that I was invited. I went to Geneva for Ukrainian Peace Summit. When I went there, I was so encouraged, so motivated. I said yes. During 24 years, with the Timorese people dying, and it was in total of more than 250,000 people that died during 24 years. In the case of Ukraine, every minute you can see more here, more this, more that, with Ukrainian people suffering. And when I was there, I went there, I was, oh, we have all talk about peace, the need of peace. Many of us left the place very disappointed. Because it was not Ukraine Peace Summit. It was Ukraine War Summit. They didn't talk about the need of dialogue, the need of convincing each other, both sides. What we had was, we will give more money to buy weapons, to buy food for... It was not Peace Summit. It was to reaffirm the willing to continue the war, to win the war, but not thinking about the suffering of the people. And when I say the international law is not well used, it is in the case like this. Of course, ceasefires do not mean peace, but rather an end to the violence, to allow some breathing room for political negotiations to take place. This can only occur when we move from hostility and mistrust to tolerance and reconciliation. They asked me, some journalists, they asked me, and what are you thinking about the peace in Ukraine? I said, Ukraine and Russia must be sitting on the same table just to stop. Nothing. Yeah, Putin, we put more money, And now we are seeing in the European Union, because all the money go to the Ukraine, their own people are suffering economically. This is the world leaders. That is why we are here in Southeast Asia. Please, young people, have a dream. We all have to build a world without war, without conflict. Peace. We hope that when you raise up, you will build a world of peace and harmony and nation. Because the state of the world today shows just how fragile and elusive peace can be. The growing tide of intolerance and extremism, often cloaked under the guise of nationalism, continues to threaten the very fabric of our shared humanity. And while the world focuses on Gaza and Ukraine, we must not forget rising conflict and unrest across the globe, from the Democratic Republic of the Congo, the Central African Republic, Sudan, Yemen, to Haiti, and in our region, Myanmar. A few years ago, I was invited to go to Milan by FAO. And they said, yes, there is food, there is land. What is lost? The problem, and I told them, in Milan. From Africa, essentially in the north, they are going to Europe. And many are dying in the Mediterranean Sea. Why? I asked the leaders to think about this. Why? They have a lot of land. They can grow rice and everything. But they are dying of hunger, and they are trying to get a place in Europe to have something to eat. Why? Because of the conflict. The international community, instead of going and solve the conflict, they talk more about how they can help the survivors of the Mediterranean attempts. They don't see the real cause of the problem. And more, if in a country there is oil and gas or something, some resources, They give money to different groups to fight each other while they took everything because the government of the country cannot do everything. In Central African Republic, is almost cheered at almost 3 decades of peacekeeping force. No peace, they are there, money. And a few years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, it was proved that the mafia gave to the peacekeeping force and they bring to Europe, their country, diamond or gold. We are in a very, very disordered world. As developed countries pursue industrialization and economic growth with little regard for the environment, it is developing countries, especially small island developing states and the least developed countries, that are now most vulnerable to climate change. As diplomats, it will be a challenge, but a necessity to manage the rise of China and make sure that our countries are not drawn into geostrategic competition between China and the United States. And we must do this in the context of the rise of middle powers and the transition to a multipolar world. This transition to a multipolar world is becoming even more complex with the rise of nationalism, isolationism, and global disorder. And with all this change and fragility, we must also face the challenge of technological advances and the rise of artificial intelligence. We are paradoxically witnessing how the misuse of social media fosters division, spreads misinformation, and amplifies hatred. It will be important that we work to make sure that artificial intelligence becomes a force for good in the world and not a tool of division, oppression, and surveillance. Ladies and gentlemen, during the Timorese resistance struggle, we had a major force on the side of our people: international law and international system. Today, in this fragmented and fragile world, and with the collapse of international law, the effectiveness of our global institutions is coming into question. With international institutions struggling, regional cooperation offers constructive pathways for international cooperation and the consolidation of peace. We have seen ASEAN successfully foster peace, cooperation, and economic growth in a dynamic region with great diversity. Timor-Leste is proud to share in this vision. As a small nation, we know that we cannot go it alone in our region. And we understand the strength of regional solidarity and want to contribute to peace and sustainable development. Dear friends, Timor-Leste is also a proud member of G7+, a coalition of fragile and conflict-affected states committed to building resilience through mutual support and shared learning. Our journey from conflict to nationhood has taught us that development cannot be achieved in isolation. It requires robust institutions, inclusive governance, and effective diplomacy. Diplomacy for us is not just about high-level negotiations. It is about listening, learning, sharing experiences, and acting in ways that make a difference on the ground. Diplomacy should lead the way, carrying the torch of empathy and respect, reminding us of what unites us rather than what divides us. The G7 Plus has shown how fragile states can unite to amplify their voices on the international stage. By working together, we have highlighted the importance of country-led solutions and the need of global policies that respect the unique situations of the country. Diplomacy has been our tool for turning shared vulnerability into collective strength. Ladies and gentlemen, as we look to the future, we must invest in the next generation of diplomats. The world needs skilled negotiators, bridge builders, and advocates for dialogue and reconciliation. As we face a world of disorder, we need people who can develop a new global vision. Institutions like IDFR play a critical role in nurturing the talent as we confront challenges like climate change, economic inequality, and geopolitical conflict. We must remember that diplomacy is our most powerful. It is diplomacy that transforms differences into dialogue, conflict into cooperation, and aspirations into achievement. Every diplomat holds a sacred duty to be a messenger of peace and a champion of justice, representing the very best of what it means to be human. Dear friends, the challenges we face today require collective effort. Regionalism, multilateralism, and diplomacy are not just ideals, they are necessities. Timor-Leste is committed to playing its part. Let us remember that diplomacy at its core is about believing in the possibility of a better future and working tirelessly to make it a reality. Thank you very much for being patient and listening to me.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, for sharing your experiences and thoughts in your presentation just now. Before we go to the questions and answer session, perhaps I just pick up a couple of points that Excellency mentioned during your lecture. One is that should be peace and reconciliation against violence, forgiveness against hatred. And dialogue is so important, but the powerful must not enforce their will on the weak. And the behavior of governments, of states, should be rules-based, and it should be based on international laws. As you mentioned, war happens when diplomacy fails. In the realm of the military, there is also a saying. The army, during peacetime, they prepare for war. During wartime, they fight for peace. And towards the end, Excellency, you also underlined the importance of diplomacy and multilateralism in our efforts to create a better world, a better international community. So with that, I open the session for question and answer session. And to those who wants to pose a question, kindly raise your hands and we'll get someone to send microphone to you. And to our guests joining us online, you can post your questions in the chat box. And a gentle reminder, please state your name and affiliation when posting your question. So the floor is open for questions. Yes, please, gentlemen at the back.
Hello, good evening, Your Excellency. First and foremost, I would like to say that was a very great speech. And so you mentioned how few examples like Gaza and Ukraine shows and illustrate the collapse of international law. And so my question is, how can the international diplomacy adapt to address all these challenges of fragile peace, like issues of ongoing, like the supposed claim of nationalism. And then we also have the economic inequalities. And then also all these technological changes that will threaten all this supposed traditional system of multilateral diplomacy.
Excuse me, where are you from? Which?
Oh, I'm sorry, my bad. My name is Amir, and I'm an intern in IDFR here.
Oh, he's an intern here, Excellency.
Yep, thank you.
His question was, now we have the issue of how
Well, I was saying that the international law depends on the interests of the world powers. If we, poor country, if we do something, they come and say, international law. But if we look at Gaza, we talk. They will say, Israel has the right to live. Sometimes we follow because of the suffering of the Palestinian women and children there. I am Catholic. It is not the problem of Muslim or Catholicism, human being. And because during 24 years of struggle, I saw babies dying. That is why we feel the suffering. for that. The USA, money, money, money. Recently, Lebanon, but they have uranium, Iran. It is more because of their interest. But in Ukraine, they talk about international law. This is the problem. I believe that United Nations must be reformed, especially in Security Council, because there are powers there. If they don't agree, they say no. They veto. We have to start thinking about this. United Nations was created till now. They are still in need of reform. When I mentioned G7 Plus, it was because we have the position of a permanent observer in the United Nations. To talk with the United Nations organizations. Don't teach, do. Don't make too many reports. Help. I just mentioned peacekeeping force in Central African Republic. 3 decades. And I have to tell you, the United Nations were working in Cambodia. They had this experience. In 2001, Hun Sen met me in New York, and he said, please, pull them out, because they will take advantage of your fragility, your ignorance, and they will be there forever. They receive money. You don't. After talking with him, we went back. We talked with Sergio de Mello about the need of giving us already the right to take our own destiny. In 2002, on May, they left. South Sudan, Central African Republic. 3 decades. I went there more than 3 times to talk with the fighting groups. And it was only going around the city to keep peace. That is why my English, I am not a diplomat, and I just try to say something, but the international community needs a big reform in their minds, and that is why I thought, and I saw many youth here, be diplomat of peace. Because we cannot live very well, and other people are dying. A president went to Saudi Arabia in the morning. World peace at night. Signed billions of weapons, billions of dollars by selling weapons. And now, Yemen, suffering. Bombs in schools, bombs in the village, women, children, elders are dying. This is what. That is why dialogue, reconciliation. The reconciliation is not a law. Don't reconcile, no. It needs the both sides to receive each other. And reconciliation is not to punish each other. It's to recognize the failure, the mistakes, even crimes. Yes, I did. Sorry. This is reconciliation. I was repeating 24 years under Indonesian invasion, too many crimes against humanity. But after we got the right time to solve the problem, last August, we celebrated 25 years of referendum. Our people voted and the Indonesian left. But looking at the past, at the history, we said, okay, we called the Indonesians. You must recognize that you committed crime here. Yes, yes. We have all the database of who killed who, how many, the battalions, the military, everything written. After that, they recognize, yes, it was our crime. And we said, okay, we will not forget this because it is history. But now we have to say enough is enough. No more in the future. And we reconcile. Reconciliation is not only, sit down. No. Both sides must receive each other. Must talk to each other. It was not only reconciliation between Indonesia and Timor-Leste. Amongst us, with some Timorese, joined the Indonesian military and killed, and they came. And by traditional way, yes, sorry, I killed your wife, your children, very sorry. Pardon me, forgive me. It takes almost 1-2 months after that, because of sincerity, they embrace each other. They forget the past. They forgive. It is. We need this. That's why about Ukraine and Gaza, we have to talk, we have to raise the issues every time, but it will depend on the big leaders of the world. Just see, I mentioned the annexation, the Indonesian invasion was helped by America. with weapons, American weapons, that when we kill Indonesian soldiers, we capture the weapons with weapons and the other things. Because of our oil and gas. Australia. That is why the interest, the powerful countries, they define the international law, everything international, through their interests. If their interests are affected, they will not. They say, no, it is not. If not, they will be the defender of a cause. This is why, because it is an institute. I am here to appeal to you, your brothers and sisters, to start thinking about the horrible world that we are living in. The future will be in your hand and in your mind.
Do we have time for one more question, perhaps? Or are we behind time? Okay, one last question, because I understand you are keeping a very tight schedule. And can I have one more question? Gentleman in the front in batik shirt. Please introduce yourself.
Excellency, my name is Sufyan Jusso from National University of Malaysia. I used to help Timor-Leste on the drafting of the investment policy. I used to be in Dili between 2014 and 2019. My question is relating to your country's or Timor-Leste's admission into ASEAN. As we know, this morning the Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim made a statement that Malaysia fully support Timor-Leste's admission. However, there is lack of consensus still. How Timor-Leste is going to conduct its diplomacy with all ASEAN member states to find the consensus so for the country to become a full member of ASEAN in 2025. Thank you.
I have to say that it is not easy to be member of ASEAN. You know, the best international organization to be member and very easy is United Nations. You know why? Once a year you go to New York, talk a little bit, listen, and you come back. ASEAN, more than 1,500 meetings a year, meaning 2 meetings a day. And not only, there are many conditions, like also WTO, many regulations, legislations. We are already member of WTO, but to be the real acting member, we have many regulations, many legislations to make sure that we are in our preparation, and we thank very much Malaysia for helping us, not only receiving our people that are coming to train, but also going to Timor-Leste and training. But we can say that we, in the preparation, so many areas, we can say 50% already. In some areas, we are going to 60, 70%. In others, less than 50. It is not only going and sign, okay, you are a member. No, many things to do to assure that the relationship in many, because the relationship is not only, hello, how are you? I'm good, and you? Better. But the relationship means trade, means investment, means cooperation in many areas, import, export, many others, and of course, international relations, international foreign policies. That is why we are in this kind of preparation. We thank very much His Excellency, the Prime Minister of Malaysia, a very good friend of Timor-Leste, and he would like, during the chairmanship of Malaysia in 2025, we can be a member. There are many examples of Cambodia, taking very long time, with Laos also taking long time. But, as I told you, the best organization to be a member is United Nations. You send a letter and say, you come, bring a flag, and okay, you are. And one a year, you go there, you talk, and you come back. But ASEAN, many things to. I cannot answer to you in detail, but I have to say that we are in this preparation. We are in a good, we can say, in a good effort, in a good progress.
I see just now one last question, but there is one question, I think, online.
Online?
Is it?
Yes.
Can we take the question? Who's going to read
Tan Sri.
that question?
We have one question online, Tan Sri. This is
Online?
from Dato'
It's
Dr.
offline now. My mobile is offline.
Yep, please.
Okay, Tan Sri. It's from Dato' Dr. Muhammad Ramis Rahir, High Commissioner of Malaysia in Windhoek, Namibia. My question relating to your talk is, through the International Criminal Court, an organ much depend on the UNSC, has issued a warrant of arrest to the current Israeli leader. Do you think that the ICC has the strength to implement such warrant without receiving the blessings of the most powerful in the UNSC member?
Humanly, I would prefer to do everything to stop the conflict. If we change our vision, our objectives, our efforts, put in the prison, etc., we are losing our attention to the suffering of the people there. Everybody, crime, okay. everything, everybody, every country must focus to solve the problem because the people are suffering there. This is the problem. This is the problem. For me, it is secondary. If they can, I don't know, now is Trump, I don't know. What didn't help me to trust was Biden. Before the campaign, very. He said before, will not help Israel, but right before the campaign starting, will help Israel. This is this kind of hypocrisy. This is what we from the South, we in the organizations like ASEAN that are trying to build peace in the region, just say, no, please don't do this. We are not against Israel, we are not against Netanyahu. We are against the war. The Iranian ambassador went to Delhi. I talked about Yemen, because Yemen is a member of G7+. And so the problem, United States, that is why the United Nations must have people that can go to Iran, to United States, say, no, please, don't make this like to Putin, to North Korea. Please, avoid the war, please. It's very problematic. That's why I came here, because it is an institute. What I said, it is just put in the rubbish. But it was just to remember the institute, to form new diplomats, new generation of diplomats, to think about peace, to be against the suffering of the babies, the ladies, mommies. This is the problem. And the best result of diplomacy would be peace, tolerance. That is why the cooperation, multilateralism, regionalism, multilateralism, it will help to establish peace, not only in the region, but beyond the region.
Thank you, Excellency.
I have to tell you, I'm asking you all, especially the kids, the youth, the young people, please don't smoke. Smoke kills. And I'm not smoking, I'm killing mosquitoes.
Well, thank you very much, Excellency. We have come to the end of the Q&A session. And then now I pass the floor back to the Master of Ceremony. You have the floor, ma'am.
Thank you once again to His Excellency Xanana Gusmão and Tan Sri Muhammad Shariq Ram Yaakob for such an engaging session. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, this marks the end of our program for today. We would like to thank all of you for joining us, and we hope that you have benefited immensely from the lecture. We would like to invite everyone to the ground floor of this auditorium for some light refreshments. With that, we wish you a pleasant day ahead. Obrigado, cuidado, terima kasih, and adios.